Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Governor Ivey will win. Also, Britt leads into the home stretch. And let's break down what's happened in this election cycle.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.
But at least we'll try to sort it out. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and today I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire.
Hello.
Charlie Walker, assistant editor at APR, and Josh Moon, investigative reporter, all-around great guy and blockbuster content lately, Josh.
Nice. Man,
And more
like
to
I say
come,
again,
and more
I
to
love
come.
it so much when Angie's not here. It's so nice when she's not here. I get so much better introduction.
You do. Oh, well, you've been tearing it up, man. You've been killing it with the reporting over at APR.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, the bewitching hour or doomsday or however you want to look at it is almost upon us, Susan. Tuesday is the Republican primary, the Democratic primary. We'll know, hopefully, at the end of the day, who's going to be governor for the next 4 years. We probably won't know on some other things. But Kay Ivey running for re-election here. Looking good, looking bad, looking sideways. What does it look like?
Kind of, you know, whether you're looking at the polls and she's above 50% or below 50%, it looks like the undecideds are actually going to kind of lean her way. So it looks like it's a possibility that she's going to come out of this without a runoff.
You know, and I think this is interesting. In 1966, Lurleen Wallace was running for her first term, her only term as governor. But she was running against a crowded field, Josh, of 9 other Democrats, and including 2 former governors, the attorney general. I mean, crowded field. Now, yes, she had Governor Wallace at her back, but they wasn't assured that she was going to win. Kay Ivey's facing eight people who have spent probably $20 million trying to tear her down.
Yeah, it's you know, I gotta tell you, if I'd spend $20 million and we can't crack 20%, then I'd feel pretty bad about things. But
Yeah.
you know, Kay Ivey has figured out, as I've said before, she's figured out the formula to be an Alabama governor and be very popular, which is just stay out in front of a camera. You know, really, and it's. You know, I kind of hope she wins without a runoff because I think it's pretty pointless. You know, let's say somehow or another they bring her to 45 or 46 or 47%. I mean, what real difference does it make to get into that runoff at that point? You know, I mean, she's going to trounce whoever it is that gets into the runoff, and we're just going to waste money on it. And not only that, we're going to have to listen to another few weeks of these just absurd ads that just tear people down and attack, you know, our weakest people in the state and our most vulnerable people in the state. And I think it just kind of sets us back to do this for another few weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Charlie?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, overall, just this election, I just think it's pretty much going exactly the way we thought it was going to go. I mean, it got a little hairy there for a while with James getting a little more traction than I thought he should not have gotten, but he did get it. But Ivey's prevailing. I'm very, very proud of her.
Well, again, somebody the other day complained that I wrote something positive about Governor Ivey and said that, you know, they'd like to have another governor. And I said, well, which Republican governor would you like to have? And they were like, I don't want a Republican governor. I said, well, then you probably are in the wrong state because we're going to have a Republican governor.
I would take Lou Burdett. I mean, you know, just throwing it out there. I mean, he has tried to focus on issues. And, I mean, you know, I would obviously choose a Democrat, but you know, at least that guy tried to focus on issues and stay away from the hatefulness and stuff. And he's barely, cracking 2%. And so, you know.
Well, I've seen the signs, Lou in 22. I don't know which 22 he's talking about, but it ain't this one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. He doesn't have a chance. I don't mean he has a chance at all. I just would like people to think about what they've done here and look at his campaign and think, this is a guy that did try to focus on issues. Whether you agree with him or not, he tried to focus on issues and keep the nastiness out of his campaign. And it's, didn't work at all for him. And so that's on voters.
It's not going to work. It's not the way It's not the way it works anymore. I do want to get to the Senate race. This is one that's had many ups and downs right now. All polls show that Katie Britt is going into the primary with a strong lead.
As it should be.
And then Mo Brooks and that other guy.
Mike Durant.
Can't you remember his name?
Mike Durant are struggling to see who's going to be number 2, Susan. I mean, that race is about not who's going to win, not who's going to lead in the primary, but who's going to be number 2.
I think they're both number 2.
That's been interesting because, Mo Brooks was up and Durant was down, and then Durant is up, Mo Brooks is down. Now Durant's going back down. It's going to be interesting to see who is going to be number 2. I mean, Katie's in there with a solid 32%. It's just going to be real interesting to see who's the second dog in that race.
I mean, Josh, I could see a race where Katie Britt's at 39, Mo Brooks is at 30, Durant's at 30, 32, whatever. I mean, this is going to be a really interesting race because you're going to have 1 and 2. Just who's going to be 2.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. It's there's no one is predicting her to reach 50%. I don't think any poll has got her anywhere close to that. So there's going to be a runoff, and so what's really been kind of curious to me is that the 2 guys that are vying for that number 2 spot have refused to kind of accept reality to a degree and not gone after each other a little bit more. That to me would have been the smart play here. You can worry about Katie Britt and her whatever vote she had when she was the SGA president.
Yeah, right.
But sometime later if you get into the runoff. But at this point, you got to survive and you got to keep winning to get to the next round like you're in the NBA playoffs. And right now that I don't know. We'll see. You're exactly right. It's kind of a toss-up at this point.
I mean, if it were me to run the campaign, I would rather run against Mo Brooks than Mike Durant. And there's a couple of reasons. One is not that you can't. Durant is sliding. You can pull him further down. The reason is that Durant can write himself a $10 million check if he decides to. Mo Brooks can get $10 million if his life depended on it. I think that's where it falls down.
I got to say, I disagree completely there because I think Mo Brooks has kind of got that Roy Moore base of support, and so he's always going to be able to count on a certain number of people coming out, where Mike Durant's support is really thin when it comes to loyalty because nobody knows who the guy is.
Yeah,
and so true. I think, if you start to tear him down and people will flee or just stay home, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Roy Moore is some people that in the state know him. Mike Durant can buy all the ads he wants. Mm-hmm. He can try to buy himself that Senate seat, which he's been trying to do since the beginning. Alabama voters just don't vote that way. I'm sorry.
Well, and Josh and I do not get paid to handicap races, but we do it anyway, right? 2 white guys talking.
Right, yeah. They get paid the same either way, right or wrong.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics.
I'm Lindy Blanchard. As you head to the polls, I would like to make one final ask for your vote. I'm an outsider who will fix our education, end Kay Ivey's tax increases, and stand up to Joe Biden and federal overreach. Alabama deserves better, and I will be honored to serve you and bring our state into the future. I'm Lindy Blanchard, and I'm asking for your vote.
So you got caught speeding. But this time you got more than a ticket.
What are you in for?
Vehicular homicide.
Stop speeding before speeding stops you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
I'm Donald Trump, and I love Alabama. As many of you know, there are few issues facing our nation as important as election integrity and election fraud. This is why the people of the great state of Alabama must work together to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. So get out, register to vote, and get a photo ID so you can make your voice heard and decide the future of our great country. Thank you.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. And, and Josh alluded to it earlier, Susan, when he was talking about Lou Burdett talking about issues and the other candidates not talking about issues. But these consultant-driven polls, these campaigns, demand that people, if you're running as a Republican, you got to come out and you got to talk about CRT. You got to be against transgendered youth. You got to be, you got to try to divide people by race, sex, religion, everything else. This is what we live with today. They don't talk about issues because the voters want to be mad and upset about stuff.
They do, and you can see this state to state. It's the same message, whether you're in Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, New York. It's the same old issues over and over. And it has absolutely nothing to do with what we can get done in our state. We've got issues, we've got the infrastructure issues here. We've got health care issues here. We've got mental health issues. Of course, we've got prison issues here. And not one candidate for governor has spoken about any of that unless they're slinging mud at the other one.
Yeah.
But they covered guns, babies, and Jesus.
They do. They do.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's just like you have to believe that the voters don't really care about the issues if this is what the polls are telling them. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, well, it seems to be working, I guess. I don't, but certainly no one is being punished for this sort of race that they're running here. But no, you're 100% right. It's, it's like the consultants get on a track, and it's hard to get them off a track or get them to think outside of a box, because this is what, look, it's what everybody else is doing. This is what you're going to pay me to do. And so, but I give you a perfect example of that, as I mentioned before, is Lindy Blanchard's campaign. And I feel like if they had used the story, her actual life story, and talked about what she had done, I felt like that would have separated her from the field, with the adoption agency and the kids and helping out in, a third world country. And, that's a great story that people latch onto. People of all political persuasions latch onto such a story like that. And instead of that, they went the other way with this. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of people that think of a lot of these candidates as being very cruel people. And I wish they could hear from some of those people, because I don't think that Kay Ivey or Lindy Blanchard or even Tim James would sleep well at night knowing that there's a pretty significant part of the population in this state, the state where they live, that believe them to be cruel people.
Well, and I think some of that's because it's coming out of D.C. It's just lazy on the part of the consultants. They don't bother to get to know what state that they're consulting in. They don't bother to get to know the people and what they care about. It's just, here's another stamp. Let's just stamp this candidate as a Republican and move on.
Well, and that's...
they don't care.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
They don't. You're right. The outside consultants, the consultants from outside of the state, they don't care how a candidate is viewed by their fellow citizens in the state. It doesn't matter to them. All they're worried about is winning a race, and somebody's going to lose the race. And so, and you're going to have to live here and do business here and talk to people here. And this is how people are going to think of you going forward. And I just wish people would consider that a little more.
Like Tim James.
Charlie, is that all you had to say?
Oh, no. I was wanting to say, back to what Josh was saying about Lindy, I just had to put my 2 cents in. I think we all know I've never been the biggest Lindy fan, but she did come out with some of her story recently, and it was so moving. And if she had just done that sooner, I'm not saying it would have guaranteed her the win, but I really think it would have helped her numbers.
I think it would have got her in a runoff.
Definitely. I really do, after having heard it.
I agree with you 100%. These people, they don't even hire a few in-state people. but they mostly hire people out of D.C. that they only know Alabama because that's where they get a paycheck from. And, you know, I think one of the interesting things, we talk about polling to run for office. The other question is polling to govern. And I happen to know that Kay Ivey, the Kay Ivey administration, has only done one poll in 5 years. In 5 years.
5 years.
This is not an administration that poll tests how they run the government.
Unlike previous administrations
Yeah.
that we know for a fact polled whether to blow their nose or not.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's a good thing. Hey, I want to move on a little bit. You know, Mo Brooks, you know, I'll throw it out here. Mo Brooks was unendorsed by President Trump some months ago, right? So this week, APR reported where we got 2 pieces of mail from the Brooks campaign where he said, Trump endorsed, Trump endorsed.
Is it that he can't afford to redo his mailers?
I was thinking that. Maybe there was just some miscommunication there. You know, it happens.
You know, can't redo the logo?
Yeah.
I mean, because
if
everybody,
Trump can,
how embarrassing, really.
Hey, if Trump can claim to still be president, I think Mo can still claim the endorsement.
Well, there you go.
Leave it to Josh.
Solved. And I want to move on to a much more controversial thing, but Josh, you alluded to it earlier. The Durant campaign came out and tried to tie Katie Britt to an SGA vote, with the student government vote, when she was the president at the University of Alabama. And he said that she was pro-abortion, that she wanted abortion pills given to children and teenagers. It's nothing like that at all. It was it was the morning after pill, which was, you know,
That's not an abortion pill.
It is an emergency contraceptive.
It
is not an abortion
pill. It is
pill.
not an abortion pill.
You can only take it 72 hours afterwards.
I have been on this bandwagon for 4 years now. And it was Eric Johnson that explained it to me, you know, who's the biggest pro-life guy I know, that this is not the same. Jesus, wake up.
But I think one of the things that bothered me is not that Durant would lie. You know, it's not that he would lie. I mean, you know, we know politicians, they lie. But the fact that you use this an issue, nobody knows where Durant really stands on abortion or any issues, because we've only ever heard
we
from
don't
Durant.
even know where he lives right now.
I kind of feel like he just hates women at this point, and I feel really bad for his wife. I'm sorry, lady.
Josh, we got 30 seconds. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, 2 guys,
Yeah, I mean,
white guys.
you know.
Go
Well,
ahead,
yeah,
wrap
sure.
it up.
Listen, as a man, let me tell you about this abortion stuff, little ladies. You know, no,
Really
The
now?
mansplaining has started.
no. Listen, I think that it was a stupid ad. I think it was a reach. You know, as we know it was. That's all. When you're reaching back for an SGA vote of any kind, you know, it's a reach in the campaign now. I mean, these are grown adults, and if that's what you're reaching for, then Katie Britt must be a pretty clean candidate. Looking back on things.
Yeah,
you
she
know?
didn't even have a vote on that issue. But there it is. We'll leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We're going to come back with a little bit more.
You'll never guess what 400,000 people in the U.S. were using when they crashed their cars last year. No, not this. This. Distracted driving will kill you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Randy Owen. I want to encourage you to join me in voting yes on the State Parks Amendment on Alabama's primary election ballot May the 24th. Voting yes signals your support for outdoor recreation and will help maintain and expand all 21 state parks, from DeSoto State Park on Lookout Mountain to Gulf State Park on the coast. Our state parks are one of the many reasons I'm glad my home's in Alabama. Hope you'll join me in voting yes for our state parks on May 24th.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Secretary of State John Merrill, Susan, said that turnout he expects to be somewhere around 28 to 32%. Sad, but better than in previous years.
Better than previous years. I mean, previous years we've been looking at what, 25 in 2018, 21 in 2014. But I think he's equating this turnout to the very two hot races, which is the governor's race and the U.S. Senate race. People are really, really charged up about these two races, and he thinks this is going to affect turnout.
Well, more people vote, the better it is as far as I'm concerned.
I think we're at a point where it's just kind of, we'll take what we can get. I don't want to be, I'm not picky anymore. Just vote, please.
Go vote. Go vote. Go vote. Please go vote.
Josh Lyles Burke, U.S. District Judge Lyles Burke, one of Alabama's own, last week, he blocked the transgender youth bill, parts of it. He blocked what's called the Vulnerable Children and Compassion and Protection Act, which is just the most egregiously, wrong answer there. But he did block the portion where it would have criminalized doctors who provided hormone treatments to transgendered youth, and saying that he really thinks this is probably a First Amendment issue and would likely violate these people's rights. And I have to say that.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it's a pretty well would. I mean, I think that was the intent, was to violate the rights and to make a stand and really in the opinion, he's a Trump appointee, and in the opinion was fairly critical of the ridiculous defense that the state put up, for this law that they had passed, and because, but to be fair to the state, and I guess to Steve Marshall's office, there really isn't much of a defense for this thing. It came between doctors and who were trying to save the lives of children, and at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here. Is there are kids out there that are struggling every single day in life, and their parents are trying desperately to figure out what's going on, and they've worked with doctors, they've worked with counselors, they've worked with all sorts of people in the healthcare industry to arrive at these things, and it's a medical procedure at this point. It's established procedure for doctors to do this. It's not something that's quick. It's not something until they're above the age of consent. It's not something that's permanent that can't be reversed. And so it's just what we've done here was just cruel and unusual, and that's the way it should be described.
Jump in there, Susan.
I'm in there. She's trying. I'm in there. Okay, let's put it real simple. For every menopausal woman or perimenopausal woman and their husband, understand how important hormone treatments are, okay? These children are no different. It is a hormone imbalance. It's not you trying to give them drugs to turn them into something else. This is a hormone treatment. To deny them of this, every husband out there that's got a menopausal woman, can you imagine how crazy she'll get? She doesn't have her drugs.
I mean, this is, again, these are to help children with gender dysphoria.
It is. But it's that simple.
And back to Josh, real people with real lives. John Archibald just came out with a story about a transgender girl and her family. They are having to uproot their entire lives. They are an Alabama born and bred family, and they are having to move somewhere else because of this law, because she can't go to the bathroom in her school anymore, because they view her as not what she is, and it's foul.
And they're afraid of what else is going to come as a result of these ridiculous laws.
And Josh,
anything's up for grabs at this point. We should all be kind of afraid.
Well, and they, listen, these are hard decisions for everybody to make. Mm-hmm. They're tough on families. They're tough on doctors. They're tough. I think we should look at loving people and understanding what they're going through rather than all this. But again, I'm preaching to the choir up here. But Josh, we are so concerned about children and about what the Bible says and all this, which I don't know anything about transgender in there. But anyway, that, we don't regulate church daycares. We don't do it because we don't want the state messing in the church's business, right? That's part of it. So as a result, we had 3 church daycare workers charged with 44 counts of child abuse and other crimes here in the state of Alabama. And but we really care.
Yeah. Listen, it took a while to get to even the regulations that we do have over church daycares, and there was a lot of fighting. There were a lot of people. And if you'll recall, back in the midst of the fight when they blocked the bill originally, in between the original bill and the watered down bill that ended up passing in a later
we
session,
do have some
was a young boy that died.
We do have some regulations, but not nearly what we need.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And listen, it's right now it's tough to regulate any of these things because there are a lot of we haven't put the resources into it. And there are a lot of things that go on at daycare. Trust me, I know that.
But I thought we cared so much about the children.
Yeah,
and
we got to do this.
11 children under the age of 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about jerking them out of the cribs by their arms, meanwhile hitting their heads, holding them down in the cribs. I mean, we're not. These are under 2-year-old children.
Well, and Josh, I think it goes back to something else that you were writing about this week, and we talked about. 24% of Alabama's children live in poverty. 20% experience food insecurity. We just do not do well at taking care of our elderly or are very young.
No, once they're born, we don't care as much about them anymore.
Thanks for taking the words out of my mouth. Yep.
That's a big problem that we have. We have a lot of poverty here among children. We have children have a lot of food insecurity. That's why the expanded tax credit for children was such a big deal in this state. It literally lifted millions of children in this state out of poverty and gave them food that they weren't used to having. Just to put it flatly, they weren't used to having a meal that was coming on a regular, and that's a shame, and it's a shame that we're in such a state. But we need to do a little bit more if we're going, especially if we're going to start talking about the sanctity of life and forcing people to have children that they're not necessarily prepared to take care of. Then the state is going to have to figure out a way to start helping these kids.
That's true. And our infant mortality rate here in Alabama is atrocious. We are right up there with some third world countries. But we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.